their voice communication, which could be one of the reasons Vulcun moves so well inside games.
Evaluate, analyze, and commit, and it's something that they do very, very well. We're into picks and bans, and we are flying through them. Elise, Rise, and Soda taken out.
Yeah, they don't take their time.
No.
Speaking of which, they're just going through. I like how they banned Rumble, just because people have been attacking Vile Rose's champion pool as of late. It's Rumble, Kale, and then he's played one game of Rise and one game of Shen. Specifically in the top lane now, he's just had that one Shen game, so getting out Rumble, which was his mid lane choice and he could very easily transition to the top lane, is the smart thing to do.
We do see the final ban of Evelyn once again, taking that one off the table, and Keying's had that taken away from him a number of times during the course of the last couple of games. And a very quick lock-in. We're going to see Twisted Fate again in the LCS.
And since Echo's taken over the mid lane position for Velocity, he's actually performed pretty well, and Twisted Fate is one of his most proficient champions. So I really want to see what ManCloud picks against Echo's Twisted Fate, because ManCloud generally beats everyone in lane.
Yeah, he plays everything. He's got the most kills in the league right now. Yesterday he had another fantastic performance, demonstrating his versatility as well. Played Ezreal, but we do see the Yorick being locked in now. We'll see which Yorick this is. If it's a Dyrus Yorick or a Psycho Sid Yorick.
Or a support Yorick. We've seen that occasionally. And this is another one of those Vulcun things where they say they play everything. You never know what we're going to do. Breaking out a Yorick at the top of your champion picks actually might tell Velocity a little bit what they're going for. Oftentimes, for the most efficient Yorick compositions, you run Rise or Cassiopeia in the mid lane, sometimes Karthus, but I'm not a huge fan, and then you also need a really strong AD carry to clone, so either like a Twitch, Kog'Maw, or Vayne like that. So Vulcun,
and with
going to be interesting.
With Zuna, it could be Tristana, it could be Kog. It's his
do Trist as well, yeah.
His go-to sort of hyper carry ADs as far as they're concerned. On the other side for Velocity, Shen has been locked in again for Vile Rose. He struggled in the laning phase. He had a very tough time yesterday, so we'll have to see if in less than 24 hours he's fixed some of the problems.
He was down by almost 100 minion kills at one point in that game, but then he team fought well, and he called well for his team, and he was allowing them to come back in that game. It's a give and take with Velocity and Vile Rose right now, trying to get him more attuned to that top lane role, and I really need to see what Psycho Sid lanes against him. I would expect him almost... he can't quite pick this yet because NK Inc. has played jungle Shen in the past, so they can't get a safe counter lane in the top against Shen if they go right away. I guess they have kind of said they're doing Yorick now against him with the Zac jungle.
Yeah, with the Zac jungle, it's also different. You know, with the Ezreal being locked in, it's not that hyper carry that we talk about and we prefer to see with Yorick's, but of course it can work out. At the end of the day, you do get that sixth man effectively in your team fights up until the point that your carry actually dies. On the other side, we do see all that CC. You've got gold cards from Twisted Fate, you've got Zyra with all his CC, you've got the taunts from Shen, and they are the ones that actually lock in their hyper carry.
The Maple Street Vayne, something we haven't seen too much of. He was the Draven player coming in. He's also had some of his best games on Tristana and Varus, but just decides to go Vayne against this. Vayne is okay at dealing with the Zac dive because he's able to tumble away from the bouncing damaging man, but it's a dangerous pick against a team composition that might have too much close range damage, especially since Rise is so good against Vayne. ManCloud's a good Rise, and there could be two of it.
It could also be the fear factor that maybe putting thoughts of, hey, that could be Ezreal in the mid, and they might want to lock a hyper carry next as well. It's a thought process. It's maybe something else. We do see, however, they have locked in that Lee Sin as well, so NK Inc. will be taking the Blind Monk in the jungle. And the Velocity Esports, they've once again got double global champions, and it's scary to deal with.
And we were wondering, you were just saying it could be that Ezreal mid. I wasn't thinking that Vulcun was going to go for it because they were already quite low on crowd control, and they don't have the top lane Zac that can be the monstrous tank that goes in. They have the jungle Zac, who's a medium-sized tank that goes in. He falls down pretty quickly, and being able to keep Velocity in fights could be a big struggle for Vulcun if they don't just completely crush in the early game. They really like the double AD comp, deciding to go for it again, but this looks a little questionable. They're going to have to win early.
Out of the 8 games we've seen yesterday and today, 4 of them have featured double AD compositions. So it's the trend that we're seeing right now. The one thing that I do want to mention about Velocity's double globals, I distinctly remember them playing against Dignitas. Crumbs was playing his Nocturne at the time, and they were unable to make plays happen with the Shen and Twisted Fate. They were shut down. They were playing very defensive. And I think if they play with that passive hang back mentality, they may find similar situations.
And the nice thing for Velocity is they are coming off a win against CLG, so they need to be able to carry that confidence through into this game, because if they play passively and let the Kog'Maw farm up with the Yorick on his team, even if they can't force team fights, even if Vulcun can't force team fights, they could starve Velocity out in the long run.
One of the things that maybe Vulcun will be thinking to do is reacting to team fights. Maybe they'll want to play passive, wait till they get dove on, use that Omen of Death and get the clones up and then pick the fight. So we'll have to see how this one pans out. It is the final game of the day that features Velocity Esports taking on Vulcun. One of these teams is going to go 2-0 for the week.
Yep. And
Velocity is one of those teams, so we'll have to see if they can keep the momentum from yesterday.
And you got to stay tuned for this one, because can't count Velocity out. They beat COG. They've beaten COG twice in this season. They need to make something happen here.
Yeah,
they really do.
With the backs against the wall, the pressure is now on. And also, their team composition lends themselves to actually making things happen. They've got that Shen, if anyone gets dove on. They've got Twisted Fate to make plays happen. And you know what? If Zach does come jumping in there, just put the Zyra ultimate down, and the rest of Vulcun will have a very tough time getting through that.
And there is one thing I need to point out before the action starts about these team compositions, is that most double AD comps that have the most success have very high amounts of magic damage coming from their other solo lane. This is not the case for this Vulcun composition. Yorick also contributes physical damage. Yes, Kog'Maw can do slight amounts of magic damage, and Zac can as well, but if Vilerose or NK Inc. get a couple kills or get a little bit ahead, their armor stacking could make it extremely difficult for Vulcun to take them in late game team fights.
Pressure is going to be on then for Vilerose and NK Inc. to make those kills happen and get those items on the board. And in order to try shut that down, we do see that Zuna's Kog'Maw is poising himself towards this top lane. So it looks like we're going to have a lane swap coming in here from the members of Vulcun.
And ManCloud's going to be able to most likely lane against Echo, which is what he wants. He dominated the lane yesterday as Ezreal against, don't remember exactly, Scar's Rise?
Scar's Rise, yeah.
And Twisted Fate is not much stronger of a laner than Rise, so I expect ManCloud to have pretty good time there.
We'll see how well he pans out. Echo has actually decided to go with a flash barrier as far as his summoner spells are concerned. One thing that will at least play into Vulcan's favor, their 1v2 laner of Yorick will have an easier time picking up CS and staying sustained in that lane thanks to his Omen of Famine. He's going to get that HP back, and as long as he doesn't get rooted for too long, he should stay fairly healthy.
Exactly, and the Shen 1v2 is not the smoothest of lanes. So not only was Vilerose having a struggling game yesterday on Shen, he's immediately put into a difficult 1v2 situation, so the pressure is on.
If nothing else, he's going to be experienced in having a difficult time at the start and bouncing back. So we'll see if we can channel his gameplay and his performance from yesterday. The lanes have set themselves up. Zac started by his red buff. He's already smited that one away, and there is a ward on his blue buff. So we'll see if Velocity or the rest of them maybe want to try to contest. Time will tell.
A very large number of wards out early for Vulcun. They put 5 down on the map immediately, which usually tells you that they're looking to make a lot of early game moves or prevent the enemy team from making early game moves. And already, Smithy goes for the blue buff steal.
Yeah, so he's managed to move himself up there. 3 of Vulcan's wards have been placed there, so he's well aware that nobody is around to at least challenge him for it, and he's just going to take that one up, while NK Inc., he's going to trade. So they trade buffs, nothing gained, nothing lost at this point.
They both walk through wards on their way to that as well, so both teams know exactly what is up. Now the question becomes, who's going to get dove and who needs to run away and concede minions at their turret? Psycho Sid and Vilerose are both in potential danger of dying if they stick around, and Vilerose hasn't even gotten a minion yet.
Psycho Sid is way more afraid. Vilerose is at least staying within experience range. Sid ran all the way back to his second inner turret, very afraid of that dive. It's actually going to be Xmithy making the move onto Vilerose, and he manages to get away unscathed.
Yeah, Psycho Sid has the minion lead with 1 right now. Neither of these guys are going to have a good time, and I think this is actually in benefit of Vulcun just because Psycho Sid has so much more experience playing from a difficult 1v2 lane than Vilerose does.
What we do see is that at 4 minutes on the clock, the 3-man pushes are going to trade towers here. First tower to fall is going to be Velocity taking down Vulcans, and I imagine it won't be long before Vulcun do the same.
And it's all about what happens next. Even though technically a team got first turret here, nothing has actually happened in this game yet. The laners have traded farm away from each other, and it's all about how they react now. It looks like Vulcan's going to continue to push up, whereas Velocity might be peeling for that dragon.
So it does look like they're stacking up towards the bottom. Psycho Sid with his 1 creep and a little bit of passive gold gain. All he's done is picked himself up more vision. That definitely signals an intent to maybe stick around in the lane and try farm his way back into a little bit of a power position. Dragon has been started for Velocity, as that's a 3-man stack they've got on that Dragon.
Yeah, and Velocity can try to take a couple extra Dragon hits thanks to the Zyra plants that Evaniscus had down early there. And that is a great start for Velocity, getting essentially the first objective of the game, because they're the ones who decided to start in that bottom turret.
And it's definitely something that'll give them that global golden experience, which is going to help Vilrose out, who is still yet to pick up a creep. And finally does it. As I say it, he manages to get himself on the board. And Zuna and Bloodwater now going to be in a little bit more of a difficult position if they decide to carry on with this pressure against a team with 2 globals, as they're going to get them fairly soon.
Especially because Psycho Sid's lane is pushing heavily away from the turret right now, so there's not a safe place on the map for Zuna and Bloodwater to farm right now. Echo's going to hit 6 as well, as you mentioned, and it will become more and more dangerous. So this is not the smoothest early game for Vulcun.
So one of the things that Velocity will need to do once they do get that Destiny available and once Vilrose eventually hits 10 United is actually make those plays. We seen it yesterday against CLG. They showed that they had the team fight composition and they weren't afraid to pick fights, even though they were a little bit behind in terms of their gold counts.
And they were winning every single team fight as well. Vulcun just wins in multiple ways. So if they think Velocity has to win via... I feel like Velocity has to win via skirmishing and getting their ultimate cooldowns out, which means Vulcan's just going to try to work around and in between those.
So with the tower going down, Vilrose has once again maintained presence in this 1v2 lane. He's moved to the bottom lane. Sid still around and hanging out as Xmithy getting some wards down. So this is a 3-man dive onto the tower as Xmithy's getting close.
Yeah, Vulcun has kind of merged their lanes together, and they're now trying to take turrets back to get back for the Dragon they gave up. It could be a 4-for-2 if they decided to go for it, but it looks like they're just letting NK Inc and Vilrose 2-man defend this entire creep wave.
Bloodwater and Zuna focusing more on the champions than they are on the tower, trying to get some poke down, and they weren't really focusing the objective, so maybe not entirely on the same page. We do see that Vilrose falling behind in terms of the CS sit with all the time. He's actually picked up a lot of creeps at this stage.
Yeah, let's try to figure out what Vulcan's doing here, because they don't just say, yeah, we're going to decide not to kill a turret even though we're losing turrets. They're specifically trying to deny Vilrose farm instead of taking Vilrose's turrets right now, because they don't want that Shen to be a threat in the side lanes at any point in this game.
So we'll see how long they can drag that one out. The longer they keep Vilrose's Shen down, the more beneficial it is for them when they want to make a play. We do see that now they're going to start stacking up. Xmithy's charging the slingshot, but he doesn't pull the trigger just yet. And there he does!
Ooh, gets a lot of harass down, but takes multiple turret shots. Once again, though, they're pulling NK Inc consistently to the bottom lane and making the other lanes just straight up matchups.
And also focusing on the tower this time round, so it's a little bit different to the previous engagement. They're trying to focus the objective down as quickly as is possible. Zuna is behind on CS in comparison to Maple Street's Vayne, and that's all thanks to the presence and the additional members that's been in his lane.
I think Maple Street's doing a great job, and this bodes well for Velocity. While he hasn't gotten kills yet, getting an early farm lead for Maple Street is always a step in the right direction.
So Destiny gets channeled, Echo's primed the gold card, he locks it down onto Zuna, but the Lantern gets him to safety. Velocity, they make a gank, it doesn't pay off.
So key to have Thresh against Twisted Fate, because he can play far back in the lanes and make every choice a bad choice for Twisted Fate when he decides to teleport in. Good positioning of my Bloodwater, completely shutting down that Echo ultimate.
Xmithy dives into Echo, eats a gold card for his trouble.
ManCloud wanted to come around, which is why Echo had to peel back. And I actually do need to give a little bit of props to Echo here for doing so well in that 1v1 lane against ManCloud.
He eats an Ignite for his trouble, throws out the wild cards, doesn't manage to save the red buff, but it goes to Xmithy. Xmithy, can he click the Lantern? That's the real question. It's being bloody blocked, and Shen and Lee Sin deny it. The Bloblets are trying to reform. They're trying to reform into the giant monster that is Zac. He will be able to respawn up as Vilrose dashes across the tree. Nobody goes down.
So a lot of people involved in that fight, but nobody going down. Vulcan did a good job of protecting the Zac Bloblets after he fell in that one. That was a Lantern body block that prevented him from coming through, and no harm done at the end of the day.
Sid gets ignited, stunned against the wall, put a lot of damage down onto Zyra, and in that 1v2 lane, he's actually doing very, very well. 51 CS, and he's actually trading fairly evenly with Maple Street and Evaniscus.
And this is one of the dangers teams run into when they play against Twisted Fate. Yes, Vulcun is down a Dragon, which is 975 of that gold. But the other 300 or 400 means that thanks to Twisted Fate's extra 2 gold he gives on last hits, if you are splitting with the team in lane, it means you are losing the gold game. So the emphasis is actually on Vulcun to make something happen, even though Twisted Fate is allowed to make something happen anywhere on the map every time his ultimate's up.
Zuna and Blood War are keeping this pressure up on the tower, and farming themselves into a power position and trying to get as much damage down as they possibly can. Valrose has just hit 6 though, so Stand United is available if anybody goes low, if anybody gets caught out. And of course, the utility that offers cannot be discounted.
But it's still a Shen that would teleport in with a Doran shield and a little health bead. So he has been successfully denied farm by Vulcun because Vulcun has spent so much time not necessarily pushing, but just stopping Valrose from farming. It means that Shen threat is greatly diminished.
He's only 1 level ahead of his support in the top lane, 2 levels behind his opponent, and it took 10 minutes to get to that Stand United point as the Dragon's about to respawn.
Valrose is actually 100 gold behind his support right now. So even though he has that Giants belt, that just shows you the level of gold denial that's been put onto him.
So great denial and great control from Vulcun, exerting their presence and really shutting them down in the top lane and in that bottom lane. They had 4 members trying to keep Valrose on the back foot, and it worked out. Maple Street and Evaniscus now, they've moved themselves to this bottom lane. Another lane swap coming in for Velocity, and you have to feel it's got to do with Dragon spawning.
And I really wonder how Vulcan's going to handle this one, because there is a split-pushing Shen that Vulcun has no real way of matching now that they've sent Psycho Sid up to the top lane. So if Velocity wanted to force the Dragon, I feel like they could, and you can see that they're planning it with 5, 6, 7 wards, all within a pretty big radius around the Dragon Pit for Velocity. They want to go there, and they're positioning to do so.
So we do see Stand United is up, as is Destiny, so this may come into play. There's no pink ward though, or it is, but there we go, finally, ward was taken out. They do have vision. They know that Vulcun are unaware of this, and they're managing to get this one low. Maple Street
is really dangerous.
He's chasing down into Mancloud. The stun has landed as Shen is trying to join the party. A flash forward is going to at least get the shield down. First kill's picked up there by Twisted Fate. First blood secured onto Mandatory Cloud. Now Maple Street's trying to get away, but there's a Zac blob bouncing all up in his face. Destiny gets channeled from Echo. He's now turned his focus onto Xmithy. Xmithy's got 400 HP. He's trying to get away. The Void Ooze from Cogmore will help. Flash! Gold card! Smithy gets dropped. He doesn't have his passive available. Now Zuna's on the back foot. Gold card again for Echo. He's securing them. Time off the time.
He missed the time!
The taunt misses! Valrose does not hold him in place. It doesn't matter as Echo pulls the trigger on Gold card once again.
And the barrier comes in at the end to save Echo from Kog'Maw. That was a bit of a disaster for Vulcun, as Psycho Sid has to burn Flash as well.
Psycho Sid trying to get the tower down. Inking's gonna look for the Sonic Wave. If he can get past a Ghoul, it may be enough. Can he land it? That's the question. Red Pot has been drank. It's ticking over. The slow lands onto Psycho Sid. He's gonna carry on chasing. Dragon's Rage has already been used, so not available. Sonic Wave into Resonating Strike. Didn't do anywhere near as much damage as I was expecting. Psycho Sid is just taking him for a walk through the jungle. 210 HP. This should be the final bit of damage, and even better, it goes to Maple Street.
That was kind of the ideal thing to happen to Velocity after all that fight happened. I gotta say, this game might be getting out of hand for Vulcun. Velocity's pulled now a 4,000 gold lead, as well as knowing we have a Vulcun comp that cannot reliably start fights to even come back in this game. The Dragon was exactly what Velocity wanted, and they didn't even lose a side turret for it, so everything went right for Velocity there.
Xmithy throws himself into the mid lane, and not only do they get all of the objectives and the gold, 4 of those kills have been fed to Echo's Twisted Fate. 110 CS, he's got a Cage's Lucky Pick as well as that Zhonya's Hourglass completed at the 13-minute mark. And as one of the key playmakers for Velocity, that is so crucial for him and his team.
And keep in mind, this is a 3-13 team against the second place team in the LCS, and they are crushing at this point in this game. Fight in the jungle, so at the turret.
Ink is going to try put some pressure down. Stranglethorns gets thrown down and knocks everybody from Vulcun up in the air, but it's just going to be enough time to get the tower, and that's the second tower of the game for Velocity.
And here's the trap that Vulcun has to fall into with this double AD composition. They need a lot more time to farm, but they can't farm safely.
Zuna instantly flashes away, but here comes Maple Street. Final hour is available. If he wants to chase, he's going to decide against it. Yes,
yeah.
Vulcun has stepped up, has 4 members in the mid lane.
But because of that extended chase, it actually gives Vulcun a bit of a window to take out a turret in the mid lane. Still a 5,000 gold lead at 14 minutes. That is very substantial.
And it's something that Velocity will need to hold on to. That is the key to this lead. They're in a very good position, and as long as they consistently pick up more ganks and make more plays happen, it'll work. Psycho Sid will secure this inner turret in the top lane after all of that work he put in earlier.
So he's finally getting some of it back. Vulcun needs to teamfight with Psycho Sid now, because they really need to be able to provide safety to ManCloud and Zuna if they're going to stand to be those turrets of damage. But at the same time, ManCloud and Zuna have to actually become threatening, because with just a Manamune and a Bilgewater Cutlass on Ezreal and Kog'Maw respectively, the Yorick clone isn't actually contributing much yet.
And especially when you consider that Maple Street's Vayne already has the Blade of the Ruin King completed, so he's a full item ahead of his direct opposite number, Zuna, in this regard. 5-1 up in terms of kills. Every single member of Vulcun has dropped. 1-1-1-1-1 all the way down the line. And with Destiny about a third of the way left before it becomes available for use, Velocity are going to bide their time. Going to play this one a little slower.
Oh, and look at that spike by ManCloud. They want to get Maple Street down.
Stand United is being channeled. They've got this one out. This is already a win for Vulcun. Maple Street dives forward onto Vulcun. He tries to get in range for the Blade of the Ruin King active, but it was not actually used. A taunt away from Vile Rose, and Maple Street just caught out by patient play.
And this is that communication and map cohesion that Velocity needs to pick up on. Even though they've had that 5,000 gold lead a little while ago, they're losing control of their turrets. This happened against COG to them as well. They were winning all the team fights. They were very close in gold, but they lost turrets and they couldn't catch the right fights.
So Vulcun Smithy's going to jump all over Echo and NK Inc. Forced out of the fight. He sidesteps the Sonic Wave. Echo's looking to get the gold card down, but doesn't land it. And now Ezreal, as well as that Kog'Maw, are going to destroy this tower very quickly.
Double 80 carries kill turrets really fast right now, and Vile Rose is not necessarily threatening enough to get them off of it, but the whole team running through the jungle was.
Yeah, that's going to be enough to get them running with their tail between their legs. Destiny is now available for Echo as well, so at any point, if he wants to dive in there and get that gold card down, it can work out for him. ManCloud and Zuna, they're being patient in the grass.
And they could very well get a 5v4 if anyone from Velocity looks too far ahead. Evaniscus, look out!
Oh, he manages to get a little bit of vision, puts a little seed, weed, plant, tower thing in there, and reveals Zuna's position, so Vulcun back away.
You get the smallest of vision bubbles from putting that little plant down, but because he put it directly in the bush, he saved everybody's life, I feel like. So congratulations, Evaniscus. Good work.
It's something you highlight in every game. It costs you nothing to check. It costs you nothing to put a Jarvan flag down or get a little seedling in there. Be a little patient and actually see what's happening. Third tower of the game for Velocity is going to fall thanks to Echo in this top lane. If he can get one more hit tonight, instead he's going to try back away. Gold card down onto Xmithy, and he does get away safely. Tower at 150 HP.
And Xmithy's not the type of jungler to do this, but he needs to take a lot of lane farm for Vulcun to win this game. He needs to become a big enough blob to just be a frontline for his double AD carries. This is what worked so well about Vulcun's double AD yesterday, is they had Psycho Sid in the top lane as Zac, so he was able to get a lot of that lane farm. And Xmithy is off-splitting that top lane, so it looks like they're kind of moving towards that.
So we'll see what he decides to itemize toward. He's got those Ninja Tab I completed already to at least survive some of the auto attack damage and physical damage. Now in the bottom lane, Psycho Sid gets caught out. Stranglethorns does knock him up into the air. NK Inc is trying to set himself up. The Lantern pulls him backwards, and the ghost of Psycho Sid continues to fight. We'll see if any presence can be earned as ManCloud is throwing out those Mystic shots.
And that is actually a lot burned for Velocity. There's no disengage if Vulcun wants to fight.
Zuna gets kicked backwards. The taunt locks him in place. Vile Rose lands it this time. Zuna gets dropped, and will the passive be enough? Not this time, as a flash from NK Inc throws him into the Dragon Pit. Now Psycho Sid is in trouble. Echo is putting enough damage down for Maple Street to close out the kill. That's 2 for 0 in favor of Velocity.
Echo made it into the back of that fight. We didn't see it on screen, but he made all the way through the top part of Vulcun's jungle and then finished off Psycho Sid despite that awesome Lantern escape. So again, Velocity outpacing Vulcun right now, getting their second Dragon of the game, and I think their largest gold lead of the match.
And such a good play from NK Inc. He dove all the way forward, kicked Zuna backwards, and just set up a free kill there for Velocity to just focus him down and completely zone him out of that one. Maple Street left alone in this bottom lane, 111 CS. He's got 3 kills now, a double kill in their previous fight. And that Vayne can start getting very scary if he's continually fed that way.
You're right, the kill distribution on Velocity is perfect for them right now. Echo's Twisted Fate to stop either Zuna or ManCloud from ever safely farming and Maple Street, because when Maple Street gets kills, Velocity wins. And these are the two important things that have happened well for Velocity so far.
We'll see how, if they can manage to take away any of the killing spree gold from their opponents. This will help Vulcun out, but it means they need to pick an engage that actually works for them. And we've highlighted so many times, there's no clear engage other than just throwing themselves at their opponents. They don't have a taunt or a gold card or a Zyro to lock anybody up.
One thing, though, with Echo's Twisted Fate builds, and we've always seen this, he builds to ult and skirmish. He doesn't build for team fights, really. Boots of Swiftness plus Twin Shadows, even Alacrity Boots of Swiftness, he cares about running people down when there's more people of his team in the fight. So if Vulcun can draw this out a little bit and actually just get to a fight where we have 5v5 fights, even though Vulcun can't really cleanly initiate onto them, Echo's build could start being detrimental.
He's only got 450 movement speed, so as long as he's running,
just 450,
he'll be doing well. A lot of wards still slitted across the map here for Velocity. They have spent basically all of that TF passive bonus gold on Vision, because there have been 7 or more wards pretty much at any given time throughout the entirety of this matchup, and you have to give them props for that.
Yeah, they're keeping the map full of vision, so Echo can go and make plays. That's why he's 4-0-1. And to give some context onto that 450 movement speed, no one on the map other than him is even faster than 400. The fastest member on Vulcun right now is sitting at 375 movement speed, so he's pretty fast right now. He can run down anyone he wants.
And he's going to be able to motion as long as he continues selecting those gold cards, as he has done many times this matchup already. It will work in his favor. We do see that the CS numbers have grown. As Echo and Psycho said, they're still trading. This has been a duel, but albeit a very slow one in that top lane.
Yeah, it's 185 minions and a 4-0 TF versus 0-2 Yorick that was stuck in a 1v2 lane the whole game. So Psycho Sid can hold off, but he's not going to be able to hold off that turret.
And especially now that he's run out of mana, he's not going to be able to sustain any of that HP that he's been taken away from Echo. So the third tower of the game does fall. Velocity continue to keep map presence and map control with their global champions, and the fact that they've got more global objectives down than their opponents.
Yeah, it seems like Velocity has assumed complete control over this map. Echo can join any fight, and Vulcun is too weak to actually fight a 5v5.
Well, now Echo continues the pressure against Psycho Sid, dealing a lot of free damages. In the mid lane, it does look like an engage almost gets set up. If Veniscus is looking to root someone in place, does manage to catch Mancloud out.
And Psycho Sid needed to go back to base much sooner, because if he can't defend one turret, what's saying he can defend the next one? Echo is getting a bunch of damage onto this turret, and he pulls a second member of Vulcun up to stop it.
Smithy can't even really trade here. This is a jungler. He doesn't have the most HP or magic resist. The tower's going down. He's bouncing around. Echo is losing HP thanks to that unstable matter, but the tower is saved, but with 100 HP.
It's saved for now.
For now.
It's not going to last much longer with the way this Velocity split push is actually working out. Surprisingly, we're actually 4 turrets to 3 in favor of Vulcun, but Vulcun has missed out on so many creeps, so many objectives, and so many kills that they're just disastrously far behind in gold.
That's paying dividends as far as the items are concerned for Velocity. When they do pick these team fights, having that margin of error just allows you to, dare I say, make a little mistake, be a little bit out of position, because your items can carry you through some of those things. But they're not doing that now. They're picking the right fights at the right time. And this is now up to Velocity to continue this pressure all the way to the Nexus.
And it would almost be worth it for Velocity, it's going to come off the wrong way, but to do something stupid, to do something that would actually get Vulcun out of their turtle mode, because it does seem like Velocity is struggling a little bit closing in around Vulcun and actually getting a turret lead. So if someone on Velocity puts themselves in an attackable position, it will bait Vulcun in and then allow Velocity to take advantage of their item advantage.
So we do see that Echo is moving towards this tower. It literally is a warm breath away from going down. Psycho Sid next to Smithy going to dive onto him though. Echo forced a flash, pops that Destiny. He's running so quickly. He may even try and make this an aggressive play right now. Decides against it, but Maple Street, he's down to 50% HP. Stand United does get pulled across, and that's a massive shield on top of him. Stranglethorn's whiffed and knocks no one in the air. The disengage actually helping save Vulcun, dare I say it. Mancloud's playing aggressive, but doesn't manage to land any of those mystic shots.
Still the next turret down for Velocity with no casualties.
Plays into their favor.
Yeah.
Perfect play, plays into their favor. Psycho Sid next Smithy not able to lock him down, and that movement speed that we're seeing from Echo is really playing into his favor, just managing to kite around his opponents and not get locked down.
Yeah, it looked like Echo was in a rather difficult position after finishing that turret, but because the rest of Velocity was coming up through the jungle to help him, he was able to just walk away really quickly.
And something we've actually got to highlight as well is that was a good play from Velocity. Even though it looked as though Echo was a bit caught out, the rest of the team, they engaged on that. They played aggressively, and it's the one thing that I think has been lacking from Velocity in the last week or two, was the decisiveness to go in on any opportunity.
They might be on their way to a 2-0 week here, because right from the get-go, when they traded the turret plus dragon for just the turret, they started pulling ahead. And they have just kept pulling ahead again and again. Specifically at these dragons, they've gotten all 3 of them. And 3 dragons with a 4th one coming up at 24 minutes is a crazy good pace.
This is the biggest hurdle to overcome, though, those inner turrets and inhibitor turrets. That's really where the game does slow down if you're not sure how to make use of these big leads. And Vulcun, a team that's actually experienced this. They've been unable to close out games when they have had a very big lead. Echo right now is getting encroached upon by Psycho Sid as well as Xmithy. He's got gold card primed and should be able to get away from this one relatively cleanly.
Yeah, he is so fast that they can't catch in, but Vulcun now in a 3v4.
They've stunned Zuna against the wall. The taunt holds him in place. He turns backwards to carry on fighting. Now ManCloud forced to arcane shift away to safety, and that started from NK Inc. being caught.
And it also started because Echo had pulled 2 members of Vulcun away for that extra chase, so they were able to just capitalize on that 4v3 situation and potentially take another dragon here.
Zuna is 0 for 3 right now. Velocity are really showing they know how to lock him down. Maple Street gets knocked up in the air as NK Inc. dives forward. He gets pulled backwards just a little bit as Vilrose is actually going to lock Bloodwater for a couple of seconds. Exhaust is now worn off as Maple Street turns his attention. ManCloud gets dropped. That's a double kill for Maple Street. He's looking for his 3rd of the fight as the Blobblets get popped. NK Inc. is alive. Maple Street gets a triple kill. 6-2-3 right now.
And things are going from bad to worse here for Vulcun. They didn't want to give up another dragon, so again, they decided to fight while they were undermanned, and Velocity just crushed them. ManCloud got teleported on by Echo and destroyed.
4th dragon of the game secured for Velocity. They have 4 towers in the bag. They have 11 kills to 2. Double Randian's Omens have been completed there for Vilrose and for NK Inc. So if at any time ManCloud or Zuna are dealing any damage or moving around, pop those things, slow them down, and you can control the fight.
And that's exactly what they've been doing so far. There's actually been pretty good recovery by Vilrose as well in that Shen. He's caught up in farm, 1-0-8, never died in his 1v2 situations, which oftentimes is the most important thing to do. And specifically because Vulcun put such a heavy investment into stopping Vilrose from farming, the fact that they almost forgot about the real threats of Velocity here, which is Maple Street and Echo, is really paying off for Velocity.
Talking about Maple Street, he's finished off his Phantom Dancer as well as that static shift. Not enough movement speed, attack speed, or crit. Slightly different itemization. He's got up to about 21% crit, but 420 movement speed. So we've been talking about how I don't want to say easy it is for Echo to run away.
Yeah.
Maple Street can do the same.
And I think this could be a team-wide thing right now. Maybe I'm wrong here, and this is the way Maple Street builds Vayne, but bear with me. Since there's no strong, hard initiation by Vulcun, if all Velocity's carries do is make sure they're fast, they will never die. Because as soon as they don't want to fight, or as soon as they want to fight, they just walk to and from these battles and get away with it. So it's not your typical Vayne build going for a double Zeal build before even a Last Whisper, but I think it's the right choice against this team call.
It's definitely working out in his favor. I think Maple Street has gone 6 kills without dying during the course of this game, and you know, with the killing spree sitting in Echo's hands as well, it's definitely a lot of gold that you could stand to gain if you were a Vulcun member and you could pick that one up. Psycho Sid can't really toy with that Sunfire Cape, Randian's Omen, and Vilrose. He's just going to survive any of the damage that gets put on him.
Right now, the gold lead is just so massive that it would take a miracle for Vulcun to come back in this one almost, just because the hyper carry, Vayne, and the Twisted Fate are doing so strong right now. Maybe not a miracle. Maybe Vulcun just needs another 15 minutes, but with the way Velocity is pressuring on them right now, and how one-sided all these team fights have been, it becomes an increasingly difficult problem for Vulcun to solve here.
Yeah, if they are able to at least buy some more time, Cogmore will eventually be able to at least outrange Vayne as long as his Bioarcane Barrage is on, and maybe that's the key. Maybe if they can just channel Zuna's damage and focus on Maple Street, they can make it work for them. For the time being, Vulcun are the ones that are being jumped on. They're the ones that fights have been occurring to them, so they've been unable to really pick engagements on their terms at their time, and that's really what's costing them at this point.
And I wonder if Velocity is going to be going for a Baron shortly, because that might be the thing they need to really push through. And another thing that's developed, we mentioned it right at the start of the game, since Vulcun has the double AD, but no strong magic damage source, as soon as Valrose and NK Inc. get heavy amounts of armor, it becomes even more difficult for Vulcun to teamfight. That's what NK Inc. and Valrose have gotten now, with their Randwinds, Ninja Tabi, and the Sunfire Cape. I don't see how Vulcun gets through that in a teamfight. Vulcun pretty much needs to steal Baron here to even have a chance.
So we do see the slingshot was being charged. It gets cancelled by Xmithy. Gets half of his cooldown back. While this is going on, Echo's been able to take out the tower on the bottom lane. He's trading with Zuna and actually losing that engagement right now, but he does have his Destiny available. Baron does look like it's been stopped by Velocity, and they've actually moved themselves into the jungle, trying to pick a fight with Vulcun.
Velocity is being cautious with what they're doing here, because they do not want to squander this 13,000 gold advantage at 30 minutes. So they're making sure they have vision control in this Baron area, and they're trying to actually avoid getting caught in the Baron fight, which would be the one way Vulcun can actually keep Velocity where they want them.
And once again, an immense amount of vision. They've got so many wards in and around that red buff area of Vulcun. Velocity now realizing they've got control. Evaniscus goes up the route, doesn't manage to catch anybody, and that may have just allowed Vulcun to get away cleanly.
And ManCloud just tried an assassination there on Maple Street, but the True Shot Barrage missed, so he decided not to go in. All these things are telling me Velocity has more and more freedom about where they go. Strong vision control, strong split pushing, and Lee Sin, with a lot of armor, is a very proficient Baron killer.
So do you see that Echo once again returning to that bottom lane? He's keeping out this Twisted Fate split push. With the Lich Bane completed, if he does get to towers, he'll take them down even quicker than we've been seeing him do already at this point in the game. And it's all on Velocity right now. They're making the plays, they're responding well, and they're not making bad decisions. They're not engaging on things that are poor for them.
The thing that they have to watch out for are the gold totals of Zuna and ManCloud as the game progresses. 9,000 on Zuna and 10,000 on ManCloud. If those guys get up around 13 or 14,000, that's when Velocity has to start worrying, because that's when they hit 3 and 4 big 80 carry items that can actually start shredding through the armor stacking of Valrose and NK Inc. So as long as they get the game in hand before that happens, they're sold. They're good. One
of the things that does work out in favor of Velocity is the fact that Valrose has really made that deficit up. After 8 to 9 minutes, he was actually behind his support as far as gold was concerned, and now he's 3,000 ahead of Psycho Sid, so in a very good position right now. And with that Shen, with all that armor on there, maybe even the makings of a Thornmail, it's something we've actually seen a couple times this weekend already.
He should absolutely build a Thornmail, and if Lee Sin can afford it, he should build a Thornmail as well. They can just turn that double AD comp right around on their Vulcun. It's one of the best mechanics in the game against double AD to fight it.
So we do see it is completed almost on cue. Who would have guessed? Well played by Valrose. He's going to be even, survive even more. He's almost hitting that level 18. He's 3 levels above Psycho Sid right now. And he's definitely bounced back so incredibly well. This should be the 5th dragon of the game, if I recall correctly, for Velocity. And they extend that gold lead to 14,000 gold right now.
This is a game that's completely in hand. And it's actually really funny, because right after the game, where the feature rolls for Vulcun saying, on the rise, under the radar, no one believes in us. Only once have they been voted to win a game. This is why, guys. You just got voted to win the game, and they're down 14,000 gold.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the first time they were voted to win a game was against Velocity eSports as well. So I didn't check, I don't remember the vote for this matchup. I'll have to double check that after this one, but right now,
I could guess it was in favor of Vulcun, because this is a definite upset.
All the pressure is on Vulcun right now. Velocity, they've got such a great window and margin of error to work around and play with. If anyone gets caught, Stand United can save them. If a fight breaks out that's close enough for Echo to Destiny 2, that can turn things in their favor. So, in a very good position, and they're thinking about Baron. They so badly want Baron, they're just not in a position to feel comfortable taking it.
And they're not committing on anything here, which is a little curious to me, because they're in a position where they could. They just don't know their limits yet, because honestly, Velocity's not used to being up this much in games. They gotta go, and here it is.
So there we go. The root is going to at least lock him down. Stranglethorns throws up Xmithy into the air. They're focusing down on Zac as he flashes away to the side. Echo has joined the fight. Throws down that Zhonya's Algos, survives for a little bit longer. ManCloud gets turned into a ghost, but he's not doing anything. He may not have realized that Yorick brought him back to life. I'm lying to you, because it was ManCloud that was done. There he is. Zuna gets dropped in the background. The ghost of ManCloud trying to put as much damage down as he can. Quadra kill for Maple Street, the second in as many games.
And Maple Street's got to love playing against double AD compositions, because if history means anything, it's that he gets a quadra kill here. 15 kills to 2 now, almost on cue. Velocity decides to commit, and they're just rolling through this inhibitor turret.
Tower is down. They'll be able to drop this inhibitor very quickly, and such great decision-making from Velocity. They pick the fight just as we say they're not committing to anything. They throw themselves over a wall into a team fight and grab the first inhibitor of the game.
So, just a continuation of their total control here. The double speed build for Maple Street allowed him to run down everyone on Vulcun. He actually flashed the Baron wall just to get into that fight. That is how little he cares right now about what Vulcun can throw at them. And that's because Vulcun just has to run away from the tanks that exist on Velocity right now.
And if the problem wasn't compounded enough, Guardian Angel is now being completed. So over and above the shield of Stand United and all the counter-engage that Zyra offers, if you get Maple Street once, you got to do it all over again.
I don't think they have time for that. I feel like the rest of their team would be dead by the time they can finish off Maple Street twice. This is not a good position to be in if you're Vulcun. They're trying to maybe get some vision control back. I think Velocity can safely take the Baron this time if they want it, and then they can decide to push around and end the game.
Coming into this game, Velocity only had 2 victories for the entire split. And this weekend, they look to double that number. If they close this game out, it's going to be 4 victories on the board. Baron has been started, and that is just getting shredded as Echo pulls the numbers away.
And not only did that move secure the Baron, it made the Baron as safe as possible for Velocity, because Vulcun all wanted to go and kill him to stop the split push. And during his escape, it told Velocity where everybody on Vulcun was. So another awesome play by Echo, and we really have to commend Velocity on that mid lane pickup, because even though Velocity didn't see immediate rewards when they put him into the roster last week, he's been performing well every single game, and now they're looking to go 2-0 this week.
Yeah, after only 2 games, it may be a tiny bit premature to start talking about it, but Velocity have looked very good yesterday. They look phenomenally good today, and we'll have to see if they can continue this form. It's going to be an extremely tough ride making it into playoffs, but I don't think it's mathematically impossible considering how tight the entire group is above them.
Not yet, and even though we're now, after this game, 6 weeks in our 9-week season, there's still 11 games left for every team, because we have 2 3-game weeks for teams and then a super week, which is 5. So there's a lot of season left for all these guys.
Velocity will get 2 more chances to crack the Vulcun games if they can pick this one up. Right now, True Shot Barrage gets thrown backwards to clear out the waves as best as possible. Next, Smithy is the designated wave clear man. As both of the double ADs stay on this top lane in here.
And I think Velocity might just roll around mid because they feel there's safer access over there. There's 16,000 gold on Echo and 15,000 on Maple Street. They are just so far ahead of the Vulcun 80 carries here. It's a massive mismatch.
NK Inc. gets pulled back with Stand United, starts being channeled, but NK Inc. is backing away from the fight, so the cooldown is blown and not really used all that well. Evaniscus throws down the Stranglethorns, knocks only Psycho Sid up into the air as Smithy is in the fight. He's probably going to be the first victim. They do trade his support though. Evaniscus, the first Velocity member to die in a very long time. And Smithy will get dropped as the Bloblets are squashed.
And yes, Evaniscus went down, but it's absolutely worth it for Velocity. They are just trying to clean house here in Vulcan's base, and this has got to be close to the final fight.
Maple Street practically 3 shots ManCloud. Guardian Angel has been popped. NK Inc. he kicks Zuna into ManCloud to secure the kill. Now Maple Street does get focused down. The killing spree gold goes to Psycho Sid as he gets the shutdown, while Echo and Vilerose, they take out the top inhibitor turret. The pressure's not over as now Vilerose dives forward. The taunt is on. Zuna forced a barrier. Ignite is ticking. That's going to close him out. Now Bloodwater is the next focus. They've dropped him as well, and the explosion true damage is not going to be enough. The ghost of Psycho Sid comes back to life to try put damage down, but Velocity want to close it.
And this is not the cleanest final fight by Velocity, but they don't need it because they have such a huge edge. They're looking to take the Nexus.
Velocity going to finish this one out 20 kills to 4. They pick up their 4th victory in the game. 0 deaths for Vilerose, 0 deaths for NK Inc., and 0 deaths for Echo. What a game.
Then 11 nice kills for Maple Street, adding to his amazing scoreline in Velocity victories. But that was a 23.2 thousand gold differential by the time this game was over. This
Whatever,
game
I got this one.
shocked everybody, I think.
I don't think anybody was expecting that.
No.
Nobody was expecting that sort of game. Another attempt at that double 80 comp for Vulcun, and they felt the bittersweet returns. It's 1 for 3 on the weekend. Only wicked up one victory yesterday. All the other double 80 comps have lost.
And I just gotta wonder what happened. Yes, we were watching the game, but Velocity had this from the very start, which usually just tells you they're a team in complete control. They know how to manage resources. They can take dragons. They know how to close out games, right? They're playing safe the whole time, not making mistakes. Why are they the last place team if they're capable of playing like this? And how is Vulcun in second place if games like this can happen to them? This game needs some
To be
some thought.
very, very fair, it is a different composition. It is the fact that Vilrose is now in the top lane, Echo in the mid, and I think, without maybe bashing on Vilrose too much, Echo's making bigger plays in that mid lane than what Vilrose has been doing all split long.
And Vilrose was able to control the game with Shen in this situation. He didn't need to be put in the playmaking position. He could support people with that Shen, and he could provide the glue to hold the team together, which might be what Velocity needs. I'm very curious to see how they do next week.
Yeah, next week I think there's going to be 3 more games for them to play, so we'll have to check their performances. And after that phenomenal game, we do have to take a short break, but when we return, we'll be joined by Velocity's Maple Street, the quadra-killing beast, and NK Inc. to talk about their upset win and a perfect Week 6. Plus, we'll name our MVP and break down the standings.